What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Kickoff Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Will Brinson, RJ White, Kens Brooks, and Danny Brasco. What's up? How we doing?
Doing good.
All right. I'm doing my 25 days of bets right now on Twitter. We are doing pretty well. We're on a little 5-day heater, so hoping to keep it going. Full disclosure, the pick is not from this game because I had to ride in the NBA. That's where we're making the money, but still have good betting.
What's the bet? This is a betting show. I want to bet it. What is the bet?
Oh, the game started. It's Isaiah Hartenstein over 14.5 points and assists, which is something I've already cashed on 2 times in the past 3 days, and I will be getting it again because it's at plus money. And he already has 6 points, and it's the first quarter. Like, what are we doing?
Man, as a Knicks fan, I saw him dime like a behind-the-back pass the other night. I'm like, I miss that guy so much.
They have him shooting. I won't get it. They have him actually playing offense, which has been – I don't think odds makers are catching up to it, clearly.
Yeah, he's been passing a lot lately, too. He's like double-double numbers, or double-doubles are like – it's like minus 125 for a double-double, and he passes. Good player. RJ, thrilled to see you again for the second time on a Thursday.
Hope you're feeling better.
No, I'm not.
Are you sick, Brinson?
Yeah, I don't recommend what I have. This is my flu game. Like MJ, that's why I'm wearing like just a quarter zip.
Which should now be known as the pizza poisoning game after the myth has been, the lore has been changed.
You know what? We're going to be fast, but I'm going to point out that Michael Jordan, greatest player of all time, no doubt about it. Carolina legend, his favorite player of all time, an NC State player, David Thompson. Ha! Suck that. Tar Heels, he said to no one in particular. All right, let's talk about Broncos at Chargers. Oh, yeah, look at that BetMGM number. Chargers catching a little juice here. They're minus 2.5, minus 115. Seen it 3 in some places. Kind of interesting, RJ, that it kind of flips. Yeah, you don't necessarily see it waffle from that 3 to that 2.5 very often, just because you can give people an opportunity to not necessarily middle, but like if somebody loves the Chargers, they can get them right now. Total of 41.5. RJ, what do you like?
I'm going to go with the Chargers. I know the market liked the Broncos at +3, but I think this is a good matchup for the Chargers. They struggle against teams that are good. That happened last week with the Bucs. I'm pretty sure the Bucs are a good team based on how they've been playing. Yeah. Denver did not look like a good team. I know they won that game by a blowout, but 192 yards on 13 meaningful drives, despite the blowout score there. Had some good special teams. Had, of course, Anthony Richardson throw them an easy pick 6. So I think that result was pretty fake. The Chargers dominated the first meeting. It was 23-0 going into the fourth quarter. Denver rallied a bit after that, but they had 63 yards in their first 7 drives. If that Chargers defense shows up here, it's going to be a good night for Denver pretty quickly. So I think there are situations where the Chargers run away with this. And even if it's I don't see the Broncos, running away with it up by a score late. I think if it's a close game, the Chargers could win it on a field goal anyway. So like Chargers minus 2.5 for my pick.
All right. If you've got questions about the game, questions about prop bets, whatever you got, put them in the chat. We will get to them at the appropriate time. I'm sure somebody knows CS, so don't ask field goal questions. It's a bit we've got going on here. I'm also on the Chargers. I think, and what a fun coaching matchup, by the way. Like Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, Andy Reid's the guy. But we're talking about like 2 borderline Hall of Fame coaches. Like, all right, who's number 2? And I think Harbaugh takes these matchups kind of seriously, like in terms of getting up for. And I mean, obviously, he takes every game seriously, but like getting up for these divisional matchups, he likes to create rivalries within the division. Famously, went up to Pete Carroll went up to him after a game back in I think it was 2012 and was like, "What's your deal? Like, what is your deal, you psychopath?" So yeah, I think he's going to be up for this one. I think the Chargers will be up for it. Obviously, it's huge for playoff purposes, especially with, we should point out, the Bengals kind of lurking. I would not rule out the Bengals making the playoffs at all. If the Bengals went out, the playoff path is like the Chiefs win a game against the Broncos, and then I think I'm not sure they need the Broncos to win tonight, but like it's like a really kind of simple playoff path. So
it's so funny because all season, like people at the company will ask us, what's Bengals percent chance after, this week to make a playoff for this week. And it's like all season long, we're always like, God, that's just a little higher than it should be. Like you look at their record, their division record, and you're like,
6% right now.
Not 0. Like how?
Here's what the Bengals need to have happen. They have to win out. The Chargers win tonight. The Titans beat the Colts on Sunday. The 49ers beat the Dolphins. And the Chiefs in Week 18 beat the Broncos. And the Upshot New York Times playoff simulator has them 100% in. And I didn't go through and I didn't do it on my own, the ESPN playoff predictor or whatever. But the point being is that's not. Oh, I hate when that happens. That is not that hard of a path. You're talking about nobody, just the favorite teams win or close to it, like a field goal game. So Bengals not dead. Joe Burrow rooting for Justin Herbert tonight. And I agree with RJ. I just think the Chargers, while the running game is not great, Justin Herbert, the way that the Broncos are going to stop the pass is by the Broncos would be a much better matchup against a team that had a true alpha wide receiver that they need to funnel their pass game through, who plays on the outside maybe the Bengals without the T. Higgins, right? You just got to funnel it through Jamar Chase, or you got to funnel it through T. Higgins, and Pat Surtain can stay on him. Good luck with Pat Surtain dealing with Ladd McConkey, who is literally my size but skinnier, being able to just navigate underneath. I think they're going to come out. I think they'll throw a bunch. I think they'll throw to get the lead, run to win, force Bo Nix into being really efficient on his possessions, and come away with a win. As RJ pointed out, there's a path where the Chargers blow out the Broncos. Don't think there's a path where the Broncos blow out the Chargers. So I like the Chargers in this spot. What do you have, Danny?
Yeah, I'm looking at the total here, and I like the points you guys made for the Chargers. I couldn't quite get to the spread here. So in terms of that, I actually did play a teaser with the Broncos plus 8.5. And like Brinson was mentioning, the Bengals down from minus 8.5 to minus 2.5. That run the table narrative for Joe Burrow is there, and he's throwing the kitchen sink at opposing defenses. So I like getting them under a field goal in a teaser. And I do think this is going to be a competitive game. I think they make good points for the Chargers side. But I like the under 41.5 because it feels like you mentioned the Jim Harbaugh versus Sean Payton matchup. It feels like both of these teams have sort of overachieved because of their really good head coaching. And at this point, they might both be running into walls. The Chargers have scored just 17 points in 3 consecutive games. And without J.K. Dobbins, their run game, which was already fairly inefficient, is just running into walls. Gus Edwards, certainly a serviceable replacement, but he just doesn't have the same explosive playability that was breaking off, those big runs that J.K. Dobbins would salvage his games instead of going, 20 carries for 60 yards. And they don't really have that big playability. Yes, they can hit Quentin Johnson for the big one, but like you mentioned, Patrick Surtain's going to be out there. My one concern is Riley Moss still not on the field, and we saw how important he was when Jameis Winston lit them up. I think that was an anomaly, though. I think the Broncos defense has proven time and time again they can play stout defense against the run, and that secondary, even without Riley Moss, can shape up here. So against Ladd McConkey, we'll see who's going to be covering him mostly. I know that he'll be lined up in the slot, so we'll see if the Broncos secondary can handle him. But I think the big playability on the outside will be taken away by Patrick Surtain. And on the Broncos side, they've been rolling, but RJ was talking about, that result against the Colts was fairly fraudulent. That 30-plus points, of course, assisted by a defensive score. And they were, like you said, they were outgained largely in that game. Bo Nix, all of a sudden, he went on that 10-game stretch where he threw just 2 interceptions. Now in the last 2 games, 5 interceptions. So rookie woes rearing their ugly head again. I think that he might run into some trouble again against this Chargers defense that's played strong throughout the year. So low total, but it opened at 43. And even with offenses that have gone, like the Tampa Bay game went way over the total, right? Indianapolis game last week, way over the total. It's coming down to 41. So I would get it here before it goes any lower, 41 super key number. So I like the under, and I played the Broncos in a teaser.
Kens, what's the model on? You're muted, sorry.
You'd think this late in the season I could figure that one out. The model.
No, that's not how it works. It's when's the last time you listened to a live podcast where there wasn't at least one person or maybe 2 people? It's you're muted. You're muted.
What if
it's fine.
What if you pull that card by accident, you lose a gem?
Oh my God. Well,
no,
I got bad news for you.
Yeah, really. make this a 4-point win for the Chargers. The model basically looks at the Chargers team total, has them going over theirs, and then the Broncos slightly going under their team total. The Broncos struggled to score on the road. Like, they average 8 less points on the road than they do at home. I could see Bo Nix having some trouble here. And you look at the Chargers, I know they literally cannot run the ball. Like, there's not that many options, but I like the idea of us getting a forced OG Justin Herbert, who's going to have a ton of passing touchdowns, who's going to use, Palmer and Ladd and Johnson and all of them, who I think can have a good game for all the injuries and reasons you guys were saying as well. So not one of my favorite things, again, definitely more of a prop perspective of a game for me, but I think it is a good Chargers game. And you can find 1.5s out there too. So even taking the money line might be worth it.
All right. I think it's interesting. The model says 49% to the under. I mean, it's basically a coin flip. Like, the model doesn't love it,
right.
but it's
and then when it's like a short spread, like a small spread like that, there's a good 2-3% of just, like a tie in regulation. So it just gets like funky, but yeah, basically no value there on the over under.
And something I should mention as well, last game they played week 6, I believe. It was 23-16 final score, so going under this number. And Pat Surtain got injured on the opening series of the game. So he didn't even play that game and still went under the total. I think, he'll impact this game if he's back to his normal healthy self for sure.
All right, let's get to the inactives. We have out for this game, notably, Jaleel McLaughlin. That changes sort of the calculus for what we expect from the Broncos' run game. Javonte Williams fits into that mold. I mean, Sean Payton, with the way he uses like these tight ends and these running backs, RJ, is maddening. It has been dating back to the Saints, with the exception of Alvin Kamara really, being the only guy. I mean, I guess you go Marquise Colston if you want to get real old. But like, man, I mean, if he came out and he just like the Broncos O-line just shows up and he runs Aldrich Estime 30 times in the first quarter, nothing would surprise me with Sean Payton. Anything stand out to you here?
Or if Blake Watson somehow gets in the game after being, inactive all these times on the practice squad, and he just promotes him, and all of a sudden he's getting 15 carries. Yeah, what stands out to me is the depth at cornerback. Talk about Riley Moss, but also Levi Wallace being inactive too. You're really just leaning on your two guys, Pat Surtain, and then I think McMillan's is the slot corner that's played really well for them. So it's like, I know the Chargers don't have depth at receiver, but you could see some of the secondary receivers getting involved as they keep it away from there. I know the thought is that Surtain's going to stay on Johnston most of this game. I think on key third downs, you just move him to the slot because it's going to McConkey. So you just want your best player on him for the most part. So we'll see what they do there, see those matchups, because I think it's really a McConkey game on first and second down as long as the Chargers are willing to throw. And on their side, not really too much to talk about. We know Will Dissly's out. Stone Smart is obviously a popular play from a lot of people the last couple weeks, but nothing really else remarkable there.
All right, let's get to our props. I don't think I saw a bunch of stuff in the chat from the game itself. When did I start? No, don't see it. Oh, yeah, somebody had the parlay. Jeffrey had a parlay. We'll get to that in a minute. My brain is like cracked out of cough medicine. And
I know Denzel Perryman was questionable early in the week, but he practiced and he's going to play as well. So short week. He was out previously, came back last week, got a little banged up. Good to see him healthy in the lineup. Super important linebacker for the Chargers.
Yep, good call. I got two props. I am going to take Stone Smart over 3.5 receptions at plus money. I think in the perfect world, the Chargers will try to get Quentin Johnson involved with a couple of looks down the field. He got body bagged by Patrick Surtain in the last matchup. The issue is for Quentin Johnson. I'm playing him in captain in like a couple lotto lineups in DFS, just like on the off chance that something happens with Surtain, or he only sees Surtain 50% of the time and he's low owned and he just gets some of these, deep shots. But if you're Jim Harbaugh and you're looking at this game and you're looking at your running game and it's not functional, why wouldn't you just dink and dunk like crazy over the middle and let Herbert, who is extremely accurate, extremely smart with the ball, just to pepper guys like Stone Smart and Ladd McConkey and Josh Palmer, as Kim points out, and just move the ball methodically, pick up first downs, eat away clock, and force Bo Nix to be really efficient with the drives that he has. And so I think Smart is going to be a big factor. Now, will they probably try and run the football? Yeah, but I don't know. I think Stone Smart gets involved. I also have Devon Vele, over 33.5 yards. Think he bounces back in the spot. But, like, again, Sean Payton's usage on these guys, he dials up sort of, Vele's seen his usage or seen his production dip, I guess. You're probably going to get, if the Broncos are trailing too, some kind of explosion game from like Troy Franklin or Marvin Mims or Devon Vele, and good luck guessing exactly where it's coming from. But those are
this is really brave of you. I think I'm looking right now. I think he was my first loss. He was my December 1st play on Ken's 25 days of bets and handed me an L. So hoping for better Christmas schedules for you.
Well, I hope so too. So does my family, my son, who's going to get like my reused books instead of brand new books for Christmas. That's right. I give him books for Christmas. We're a smart family.
Reused books. Come on, Brinson. You got to give him a place.
Yeah, it's a first edition, buddy. This is great. Danny, what do you have for props?
So this is one I like a good deal. I'm going Bo Nix over 21.5 rush yards. I almost considered laddering this up a little bit, but I saw 25 plus on I think plus 125. So you can shop around and find that as well. The reason I like it is I mentioned Bo Nix's recent struggles reared their ugly head again. And against the Broncos defense that ranks top 10 in a Chargers defense that ranks top 10 in pass DVOA, I think he may look to use his legs a little bit. The Chargers employ a good deal of cover 4 and cover 6, a lot of that too high safety look. And Bo Nix against cover 4, his production has dropped off tremendously. Really bad QB rating compared to other looks. So don't be surprised if they throw a lot of that at him. And it's a direct correlation between his interceptions and his rushing props. In 5 of the 6 games that Bo Nix threw an interception, he went over his rushing prop, 20 plus yards. So with his struggles recently, and considering a really strong Chargers pass defense with Derwin James back there hawking you, I think he might look to use his wheels and to just go back to the athleticism and what can make him good when everything else isn't working. So if he's struggling again early, I think he'll go to this in the first half. I like Bo Nix to go over his rush yards tonight.
All right, RJ, anything for props for you?
Yeah, I got a Bo Nix prop too. I'd like him to go over 32.5 pass attempts at minus 125. He's failed to hit this number only 4 times. One of those was that awful weather Jets game where there wasn't much throwing to be had. And 2 were in blowout wins, and I don't expect this to be a blowout win. So it really feels like this is a situation that sets up for him to get to 33 like he typically does. I'm not confident in the Broncos rushing attack with McLaughlin hurt and I have the Chargers winning, so Nix is going to need to throw. So I like the over on his pass attempts. And then I also like something involving him as a rusher as well. I like if you go to BetMGM, you can look at the leading rusher and bet who leads the game in rushing. And this is a weird game where like Javonte Williams isn't very good. Gus Edwards isn't very good. So I think you can throw a curveball out there and try to hit a long shot with a little sprinkle. So I like playing Kamani Vidal at plus 625 or Bo Nix at plus 1200 to lead this game in rushing. So Vidal has moved from 26% snap rate a couple weeks ago to 53% prior to last week to 67% last week, even though he didn't get a lot of rushes. So don't get discouraged by his low usage. He is on the field a lot. And the rush yards prop here agrees because he's relatively close to those top guys. I believe he's like at 29.5, although the top guys are at 40.5, well within range of being able to hit this with a good run or two. And then Nick started running more again last week. Danny already made the case for him, had 61 yards in the first meeting with the Chargers. If he breaks one long one, we could see him be like the leading rusher for the team for a while, like Aaron Rodgers had, I think, after that 20-yard run. And it's just like nobody could pass him for a while. I think he ended up leading the Jets in rushing for 30 yards last week. So that seems like a way it could go for Nick. So I like sprinkling on both those guys to lead this game in rushing and just expect that Javonte Williams and Gus Edwards aren't going to do much.
All right, Kens, what does the model like this evening?
I will say, just a honorary mention, I do like all the Bo Nix on the ground situation. Like, I think that's where this team found the most success in weeks, 6 through 9 it was, that he was really comfortable using his legs. And I could see we get OG Justin and OG Bo coming into this game. But nonetheless, again, Justin Herbert over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Now we have him at exactly 1.5, but you can get even money here and plus money in some other places as well. But again, this just feels like a game where there really is no other option. Like, I do not find this to be a successful game on the ground for this team. I think you have plenty of options, which always makes it difficult for any defense in general when you don't have one big guy, one big ego to feed. So I think, again, they were in that 17-point rut that Danny was talking about for 3 straight games. Like, I think at home we finally see a little more explosive offensive firepower from them in general. And then we'll go Javonte Williams over 13.5 yards as well. Some books are up to 15.5. This is receiving yards, obviously. And this is not something he hits every week by any means, but this is a good situation for him where his snap count should be a lot higher given some injuries. And the Chargers have typically at the second highest rate in the NFL running zone coverage here, which I think will favor him. And again, just Bo Nix maybe using his legs, maybe some short passes, dink and dunks like you guys were talking about as well. That is something that would favor somebody like Williams here. So we have him at 17 yards, which relative is pretty good value.
All right, I dig it. Let's get to some chat questions. The bots are hot tonight. Shout out to Alex Sherwold, who I've now heard of, apparently. I'm not. Somebody asked, "Are you from the Philly area?" No, I'm from the South. My mom refused to let me say
Southern frat boy accent.
Yeah, well, my mom, she was like, refused to let me say "all" and "iron," which is how they say it around here. So the pronunciation, I had this funky, but she trained it out of me as a kid. So I say oil and iron, and so I end up coming across. People think I'm from Philly and in weird spots, but no, from the South. Let's see. We have Gipper's picks. Our boy says Herbert, no interception, -145. Lock it in. Not throwing interception 2 games in a row.
I was like, brother, man, I have to throw.
Yeah, I think.
Unfortunate period there. It's one sentence.
Oh yeah. Lock it in. He's not throwing an interception 2 games in a row. I think Herbert is so careful with the ball and the way they'll approach it that I'm okay with no interception. I think he can throw the ball a ton and not throw a pick. He's really sharp and really accurate.
He has 2 all year. The one he had one last week, and that was his first since week 2. So it's just most times you would expect him not to throw it. I almost put that into it's just a little bit. The price was a little high. I didn't want to give it out on the show, but I like that pick.
Yeah, for sure. Dig it. Denver team total over 17.5. Chargers over 20.5. Javonte Williams over 25 rush yards. I got to be honest, I don't really like that.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm on the under 41.5, so I don't like both of your team totals hitting. And it's asking a lot, I think.
And Javonte Williams just hasn't been good. I know that with McLaughlin out, he's expected to get a lot of the work, but what if he doesn't? He's got he's gone in as the RB1 before and gotten 5 carries, 4 yards, and they just ditch him for someone else. So I just don't think you can
Jeffrey. The only game where he was just a monster was that Saints Sean Payton revenge game where he absolutely destroyed the Saints. I think it's just at +2. I would rather go after some other props. I think you're just chasing 2 team totals. You need the over to hit, or you can get there with the under still, but that's 2 just specific numbers for those 2 teams, and they're kind of key numbers. And 25 plus rush yards. That's not a crazy number, but man, these teams. This, if anything, it turns into a shootout because these teams can't run. Gibbers has Ladd McConkey 25 plus receiving yards both halves +165. I don't dislike it. The only concern would be a Chargers lead and or Ladd's been banged up this season and has missed time in the second halves or has produced monster lines in the first half and hadn't shown up.
Yeah, I'm not a big both halves guy, but I'm not mad at that at +165. I will say that the other prop I might have gotten to in this game was Ladd McConkey over 5.5 receptions. It's juiced up to -140 range right now, so that's kind of turning me off, but maybe that's what sportsbooks want me to do. I think it could be a hitter. I have a little bit of bad blood with him too. Last week I had him over this same line, and he had 4 catches in the first couple drives at halftime, sitting with 4 catches. Ends up having 5, and on a make or break drive against the Bucs, he dropped 2 a third down and then a 4th down when they went for it, which basically sealed their fate in that game. And then he didn't get another look after that. So I'm kind of pissed at him, lost by the hook. But I think if I have the gall and stomach for it, he'll probably hit in this game too. So Ladd over 5.5 receptions, I think, is worth a look. It's up to 6.5 at +110. I don't know if I want to play it there. It could definitely end with 6, so I might pay the juice for it.
Kamani Vidal. Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, kids.
All right, I have my own Q&A for you guys. I was just on HQ with EK, and he said he likes Justin Herbert over 3.5 rush attempts, which I looked. I mean, he has had at least 4 in the past few. And if nobody else can run on the team, do you think he potentially uses his legs tonight with a ton on the line?
He could. He could also kneel down.
Is like absolutely.
Yeah, kneel downs can be there.
He's got that. He's got a new ankle brace on. He's got a lingering ankle injury on both ankles, and so now he's got one on like the outside of the right foot. So if it works, if it's good to go, he might look like Forrest Gump out there breaking the braces off. But otherwise, I'm not quite sure how his ankles are going to hold up against the Denver defense that's third in sack rate. They get home early and often to the quarterback, so we'll see if he holds up as well tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think he got there. So he didn't get there last week. Had no rushing attempts, which is concerning. But blowout, they're not going to run him. Got there the week before against Kansas City in a close game, only for 12 yards. Got there for 5 carries for 1 yard, which I believe was kneel downs against the Falcons the week before. Like if you're box score scouting it, and I'm not like dogging EK for this, but if you're box score scouting it, it probably looks pretty good. I think that 0-0 last week is really concerning when you factor in the ankle and the belief, like if you're the Chargers, you think you're going to the playoffs. Do you know what you really can't do? Is have Justin Herbert hurt his ankle even worse by running the football a bunch, especially like if you get any kind of lead, Justin Herbert ain't running. So you got to have 2 rushing attempts like by halftime or else it's unless they're losing, right? And then it's probably dead. Kamani Vidal over 12.5 receiving yards. I think the problem with this one is very game script dependent. Like you need the Broncos to be up, or the Chargers just decide that Vidal is going to be the guy. He can get there in 1 catch. So it's like, don't get me wrong, but I think if the Chargers have a lead and they're playing from ahead, it is going to be dust Gus like all night long. And even if he's not effective or efficient, they're just going to pound Gus Edwards and hope that they can sort of just milk the clock, play defense. And so, like, I don't love the Vidal over receiving yards number just because I think the Chargers are going to win. But if you think the Broncos are going to cover and win, pretty good look.
Yeah, and this rush yards total for Edwards is set at a low 35.5. If you think the Chargers are going to win this game, we'll be playing in a positive game script and we'll look to be playing possession like Jim Harbaugh does. 35.5 feels low, right? But it's curiously low to me. I wonder how many carries he get and how efficient.
What's Vidal? Do you have Vidal's in front of you?
Vidal 27.5. So it looks like they should be splitting the workload.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the other angle too. Is Vidal just steps in late in the season? He was kind of a hot sleeper before the year, becomes the guy, and he gets most of the carries. Ladd over 69.5 receiving yards. I prefer the receptions. I think just because even if they're up, those third down looks are going to go to Ladd's way. Stone Smart over 30.5 receiving yards and over 3.5 receptions. I like both, obviously. And finally, we already did that one. Cool. Let's move on. Kins, anytime touchdowns from the model.
Yes, as the story goes, I will cash my Justin Herbert over 1.5 passing touchdowns with these 2 gentlemen in front of me. I think for Ladd, again, I just think this will be a prolific passing game, dare I say, for our guy Herbert here. I think McConkey, I just think he's not priced correctly. Like I think this is priced as if we're implying like 1.2 passing touchdowns for Herbert, but I think for us, it's going to be more than that. And you look at Johnson as well. He always gets a bad rep because I feel like everybody else in his class, like Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison, are like kicking butt across the league. And like maybe he's a little below them, but he's making up from his rookie year to me, which was a little bad. But even including his bad rookie season, he's accounting for just under 45% of the team's receiving touchdowns, which is why we have him at minus 110. So the fact you can get him at plus 260 to me is pretty wild. And then Bo Nix, again, thinking we just go back to the Bo Nix, a little bit less complicated offensive scheme, little less through the air, a little more using his legs in general, a lot on the line here for him. So obviously not, something I think is completely likely to happen, but if you can get a plus 350 on it, we would have set it at plus 250. So take that for what you will.
I do like those 2 Chargers as well. If you're looking at live betting, if you want to wait to bet them and see what Surtain does on third down, if they shift him over to McConkey, I think Johnson's going to be clear on a third down play to hit a long play, potentially for a touchdown. If he sticks on Johnston, then it just makes it easier for McConkey to get in the end zone. So if you're not looking to play both, if you want to decide which one of these I should play, just watch early in the game to see what Surtain does on third down and then use that to pick a guy and go with him.
And Bo Nix plus 350. I absolutely love that. I'm putting a quarter unit on that, Ken's.
All right. I love when I convince the
All
own
right. I love it. You know what else I love? BetMGM's first touchdown offer. We've all had our first touchdown bet called back before, and BetMGM is giving you a second chance with BetMGM's Pro Football Second Chance. Place any first touchdown score bet. If your player doesn't score first but scores second, get your entire stake back in cash. No opt-in required. Let's get to our first touchdowns. The guy with 2 diamonds? Still only with 2. Wish I had 3. I'm still a little bitter I didn't go CeeDee Lamb when you got yours, Kins. Only a couple
Can't have
shows
it
left.
all.
You guys
Don't
do.
get greedy now. 2 is a phenomenal place to be.
No, but I was like, I remember like 3 weeks before that, I've been like, CeeDee Lamb at this price, you have to take him. And then I just didn't do it. I took Brandon Cooks. Boo. You know what? We'll go back. We're going to go tight end here. Stone Smart. You just see, I mean, I don't know if I hear like Al, it is Thursday, right? I don't know if I hear Al Michaels saying this per se. Stone Smart. Maybe I do. Regardless, we saw with Will Disley previously in a Chargers primetime game. This is like where the Chargers love to live. They can't run the football. You leak out the tight end, and Stone Smart. What a name. I mean, how do you not play football if you're – I guess you could like, go to Harvard or something. But how do you not play football if your name is Stone Smart? This guy's going to catch the first touchdown. 17-1. RJ, you are also on the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going back to the Kamani Vidal train here. Denver has allowed 5 receiving touchdowns to running backs. Does not sound like a lot, but only 2 teams are worse. And Vidal has a higher chance to make an impact as a receiver than Edwards. Obviously, you don't want him out there catching passes. Vidal could also hit a big run. He's more explosive than Edwards. Or he could hit a screenplay to catch this from a distance and not give Edwards the shot at a short touchdown. So I like Vidal here. I think this could be his breakout game as I'm on him as a long shot play for leading rusher, obviously. So first touchdown, I'm going to play him and hope the Chargers get him involved early.
All right, Kens.
I think they're just still, like I said, disrespecting our boy Johnston a little bit. I understand he's not everything we hoped he'd be and more, but he's still been pretty productive. And typically when he has bad games, he follows them up with some touchdown stretches, which he should be able to do tonight. He's had a touchdown in his last 2 as well. You have Ladd that a lot of the defense hopefully will be worried about, which will leave some opportunity for our boy Johnston here. And halfway to our Justin Herbert over 1.5 passing touchdown prop.
All right, Danny.
Yeah, I'm going with the Bo Nix for anytime touchdown and the first touchdown. Now that Ken's the plus 350 odds on BetMGM, those are too good to pass up. But hopefully he gets it in first. I think that he will utilize his legs tonight. I talked about it earlier for my over rushing yards prop. And down by the end zone, I think that the zone looks are confusing him. He's got to put it on the ground. So give me Bo Nix to score first at 15-1, which is curiously short. Normally a quarterback rushing, first touchdown, you're going to get 20-1 or better unless it's Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, guys like that. But 15-1 feels short. So I'm reading the tea leaves here. I'm going Knicks.
All right. I love it. Let's recap our bets. I'm on the Chargers. Devon Vele over 30.5 receiving yards. Stone Smart over 3.5 receptions. RJ on the Chargers as well. Bo Nix over 32.5 pass attempts. Also leading rusher Kamani Vidal and Bo Nix, both good looks at plus 625 and 12-1. Danny is on the Broncos Chargers under at 41.5. Bo Nix over 21.5 rush yards. Mackenzie Brooks on Justin Herbert over 1.5 passing touchdowns, and Javonte Williams over 13.5 receiving yards. That'll do it for us. For Danny, for Kens, for RJ, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you guys later.